welcome to Rising, where we give you the news and our opinions about said news, whether you like it or not. Presumably you like it, or you would just stop watching, right?
No, you are familiar with the concept of hate watching, Robby.
You think we're hate watched?
There's always some hate watchers amongst us, and I don't judge them. If they're broadening their horizons, they're making sure they're not in a silo.
Are my fans hate watching you and your fans hate watching me?
I think the nature of this show is that it's like a 50-50 split of hate watchers, respectively.
All right, let's get to the news. Briahna, what's going on?
Well, Ray Epps, a former U.S. Marine and two-time Trump supporter, is suing Fox News, alleging the network and former host Tucker Carlson knowingly promoted what his complaint calls destructive conspiracy theories about his involvement in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. More specifically, that he was a federal agent who spurred on the violence to tarnish those involved. First reported by the New York Times, the lawsuit is seeking an undisclosed amount of money in damages.
Well, the suit details how Epps and his wife came to believe 2020 election falsehoods being promoted by the former president, Donald Trump, and also by Fox News, according to them, saying they were persuaded by the lies broadcast by Fox, asserting this election had been stolen to exercise their perceived responsibilities as patriotic citizens to gather in the nation's capital on January 6th to, quote, stop the steal. Now, Epps' attorney gave a statement to the Times which reads, Ray is taking the next steps to vindicate his rights by seeking accountability for Fox's lies that have caused him and Robin so much harm. Representative for Fox News did not immediately return a request for comment to The Hill. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this whole story, here's a clip of Carlson, Tucker Carlson, when he was still with Fox News, talking about Ray Epps and January 6th. This is from last July. Let's watch.
Part of its coverage last summer, the Times published a video documentary in which the Times reported that one man was actually caught on camera planning an insurrection, encouraging a breach of the Capitol complex. That man's name is Ray Epps. Now, the New York Times noted that Epps was videotaped on both January 5th and January 6th, urging protesters to storm the Capitol. Here it is.
We need to go in to the Capitol. Let's go! I'm going to put it out there. I'm probably going to go to jail tomorrow. We need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. Peacefully. Fed. Okay, folks. For everyone, as soon as the president's done speaking, we go to the Capitol. The Capitol's this direction.
All right, so in the lawsuit, Mr. Epps alleges that because of all of the harassment that he's experienced, because of the allegations that Fox News has made about how he was a plant, that he and his wife had to close their wedding venue business in Arizona and move to a small motorhome in Utah because of these, threats and harassment. Whether or not he's going to be able to prove a direct relationship to the reporting that happened, and that reporting was in fact malicious as opposed to just delivering the news in a way that happened to reflect poorly on him, is going to be his challenge.
And I'm glad the mainstream media has finally found a January 6th person that they're really sympathetic to for some reason. Right, one would say that maybe he's just being, obviously no one should send anyone death threats for any reason, regardless of what they've said or done, but maybe he's being shamed and suffering consequences for having done something that the mainstream media thinks is really bad in all other contexts. But
the interesting thing to me is, so there's two pieces here. There is the Trump accountability and the Fox News / Tucker Carlson accountability. And what we learned from the Dominion lawsuit is that Fox News is more vulnerable than people expected it might have been, from maybe not this exact kind of suit, but from the defamation case that was relevant in Dominion, because we got that treasure trove of behind the scenes texts and emails and things. They made it clear that the state of mind of the reporters when they were reporting was not in line with the things that they were saying on air at all times. So there was the potential, it's settled obviously, so we won't see what would have happened in trial, but there was the potential to actually have a relatively strong case for them intentionally misrepresenting facts on air in a way that is in fact malicious. So if he has access to certain documents that perhaps came out in the context of the Dominion discovery, he might potentially be able to find something that said, I know Mike Epps is not an op, but the audience likes that. That's Ray Epps, sorry. I keep confusing him with his actor. But we were out to get this guy anyway. the likelihood of, I'm not saying that exists,
I
obviously.
think that's unlikely.
But that's what he's hoping for.
Well, sure.
The other part of it is this interesting argument about Donald Trump's accountability. And we've made the case on this show that I do think a lot of the folks who were there at 1/6 were misled by Donald Trump claiming election fraud, telling people to go to the Capitol, representing in some ways, perhaps only tacitly, that he had their back and would support them if they did in fact storm the Capitol, that they were doing something patriotic and that they were on the right side of history. And I've seen interviews with other January 6th protesters who have expressed regret and frustration that they were misled in those ways by Donald Trump. Not that they don't politically believe what they believe, but that they thought that there was more of a there based on the representations of Donald Trump. Now, whether there's a legal argument that Donald Trump is responsible for their behavior is one thing, but I certainly think there is definitely an interesting and kind of strong moral argument about his culpability. And I wonder if any of the people present or who weren't present but were sympathetic to the 1/6 protesters had their attitude toward Donald Trump negatively affected at all when he was largely unscathed by that whole scenario. But so many individuals who were encouraged to go there and enter the Capitol that day because of him ended up facing some real consequences.
Well, I'm not interested in carrying any water for Donald Trump with respect to January 6th. It is totally his fault. He should not be president again, end of story. But this guy, Ray Epps, is on camera saying explicitly we should enter the Capitol. And the people around him are saying
like, no.
They are rejecting that idea. And in fact, they are accusing him of being a plant, because the person inducing you, and this is why, like, this is not a conspiracy theory in general. There are plenty of examples, tons of examples from prosecutions of federal officials or law enforcement or assets of law enforcement inducing people to commit crimes so that they can charge them, so that there's enough evidence. This has happened to Islamic people online in chat rooms all the time. It happens in sexual predators category too. And I mean, again, these are gross people who, went along with doing gross things, but it was entrapment in how they were engaged with, they're not actually meeting some underage person online. They're talking to a law enforcement agent the whole time. You can think that's appropriate and that's how we get creepy people, fine. But don't tell me that law enforcement never pretends to be someone else in order to get you to actually commit to a crime or an organized part of a crime so they can arrest you. It happens constantly. So it's not a ridiculous idea. And I Tucker knows those things and took this idea seriously. Maybe some other Fox News people did. Now, all that said, I have not seen a shred of actual evidence suggesting that Ray Epps was a federal asset. There's a lot of speculation that, well, that's why he wasn't charged. That's why after they interviewed him, his name disappeared from the FBI's list of people they're interested in with connection to January 6th. That's why his name got taken off the list. But that's all speculative. So I haven't seen any actual evidence. And Chris Wray got asked about it yesterday. I think we have that, right? Can we actually play that next? Do we have that? Yeah, they're bringing it up. So FBI Director Christopher Wray was being questioned yesterday in part of these oversight hearings about a lot of issues, including that one. And I think we have it now.
Can I get a commitment? You just watched the video. I'm an old law dog. I understand a little bit about probable cause. He did very little. There was very little difference what he did and Mr. Strecka. You can see him. He's encouraging. I almost think he's inciting a riot. He's encouraging people the night prior to go into the Capitol. The day of, go into the Capitol. And he was at the first breach. And he breached the restricted area. Everybody, a lot of people getting arrested for not going into the Capitol, but they're in the restricted area. But yet, Ray Epps, who many people feel, fed, right? And there's a lot of cloud over this. So my point is this. You arrested a lot of folks for unlawful activity. You just saw the video. And I will tell you, Mr. Ray, if you don't arrest Mr. Epps, there's a reason behind it. I believe you know what it is. And it appears to me you are protecting this guy. I strongly recommend you get your house back in order. With that, I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, if I might briefly.
Gentlemen, will respond, then we got a couple point of orders.
It is
not unanimous consent, excuse me. Go ahead.
It has never been appropriate for an FBI director in congressional testimony to be weighing in on who is or isn't going to be arrested and who is or isn't going to get charged, which is a prosecutor's decision.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is he's not going to answer specific questions of any nature in this format, and law enforcement officials are going to thwart any inquiry, whether in good faith or bad faith, into this matter out of habit and spite.
Yeah, so I just was taking a look at the complaint, and it's interesting. He includes a bunch of text messages that are intended to lay out the case for him having kind of an independent, non-federal, non-Fed reasons for wanting to go and protest at the Capitol. Text messages between him and family members talking about how this is what Trump wants and how he believed the Stop the Steal narrative. He has the screen grabs of vendors selling T-shirts saying, "Go get Ray Epps." Who is Ray Epps? Arrest Ray Epps for leading January 6th federal insurrection. And he says that this is as evidence of the kind of targeting that was the result of Tucker Carlson. There are some of the T-shirts from the from the complaint. He has transcripts of Tucker Carlson segments in which he specifically targets Ray Epps as a potential federal operative, and arguing that he knew what he was doing and that there was no evidence that he's been cleared of these kinds of charges. And he basically makes the argument that he was unduly harmed as a consequence of a pogrom that was incited against him, largely because of Fox News. And it only I think because of the disclosures that we learned through Dominion do I think there's any chance here of him having any kind of a legitimate claim. But it is interesting, at least from a symbolic perspective, to have his case laid out, because it is a little bit, I mean, what do you think about this? It does feel a little bit irresponsible, perhaps, for a news agency to lean perhaps as hard as Tucker Carlson did into accusations about Ray Epps, and raising that kind of speculation without having perhaps as much proof if there was, and without offering consistently the evidence that he was not, in fact, implicated.
Yeah, fine. I would urge people to be aware of the fact that no one, Fox News or anyone else, has been able to present actual evidence that he is a federal agent or asset.
Yeah.
And absent that, your just like hunch is not enough.
Yeah.
You can have a hunch that causes you to look into the matter, but you have to actually get some evidence, and that has not happened.
Yeah.
But that said, I mean, again, the mainstream media has dragged January 6ers through them, and they think deservedly, has plastered people's pictures and wall-to-wall coverage of all the bad things January 6er people did, and I'm sure those people have suffered business and reputational harms, and the mainstream media would say that's totally deserved. So why it's different in this guy's case, when he did tell people to go into the Capitol.
But Robby, smearing, reporting on something that somebody did do, smearing them for storming the Capitol. Wait a minute, but smearing somebody for storming the Capitol if they actually did storm the Capitol is one thing. And you can subjectively think it was good or bad for them not to do that, but saying that person stormed the Capitol and then them getting criticism for literally storming the Capitol is not different than alleging that someone in bad faith stormed the Capitol because they're a federal operative when there's no evidence for them. There's a difference between smearing somebody for what they did and telling what is ostensibly a lie about them until proven otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I'm kind of not a big fan of defamation law in general. Like, you can disagree with the thrust of this reporting. Again, I do have a lot of disagreements with it because, again, we want that actual evidence of what they're claiming. But I don't think it was even malicious to the extent the Dominion claims were just like factually inaccurate claims. Mm-hmm. This seems like kind of like a fishing expedition because you can do discovery, get everybody's text, and maybe he could get lucky and he finds some text that would seem to confirm what he's saying. I don't like this practice in general.
Well, that is still the law. Defamation cases are still a tool for people to vindicate themselves when they feel like they've been smeared in the public lie. This is a one count. He's charging charging defamation per se, and the second one is in false light, being portrayed in inaccurate ways in the media. So we'll see where this goes. It's pretty interesting to follow. You referenced the fact that mainstream media has not been particularly sympathetic to 1-6 protesters, and that's obviously true. I don't know that the treatment of Mike Epps. He lives in a world of his own.
Ray Epps.
Sorry, why don't know why I do
Who
that.
is Mike Epps?
He's,
where's my T-shirt that says when
he's an
forget
actor.
Ray Epps? Who is Mike
He's like
Epps?
a black actor. It's not important.
I'm gonna Google him.
But
I don't know
yeah.
who this guy is. Anyway.
Yeah, well. Ray Epps, I don't know that this is one of those cases where we can kind of reason, well, all the people that I hate also hate him, so he must be in the wrong. This isn't like the mainstream media, the liberal media versus the conservative media. All of the media now is not sympathetic to this guy, except for that for a second he was willing to push back a little bit against the right because
There was
the right
that
was
60
pushing back
minutes
on it.
was glowing.
Yeah, I know, but he's not. Nobody cares about.
Well,
right.
yeah.
I mean, like, this guy is on an island by himself with this lawsuit. So we'll see where he's going to, if he gets anywhere with this. And it also, I think, is reflective of some of the interesting factions that have evolved now that Tucker and Fox News are in two different camps. Do you still like Fox News now that Tucker is no longer there? Do you side with Epps against Tucker, but also against Fox? How do your allegiance fall out? Obviously, Donald Trump is in the mix here. It's a lot.
I don't know, man. We will continue to follow that. But coming up next, we have an in-depth interview with 2024 Democratic presidential candidate Marianne Williamson. Stay tuned.